Hi, everyone. So I want to welcome a very special guest. With me, I have a good friend who I've known and followed for years, Rob Hill Sr. He is an author, entrepreneur, father, and public speaker. Originally from Chesapeake, Virginia, Rob is sought after as a voice on healthy relationships, purpose-filled living, community organizing, and constructive love. The son of a deacon and military officer, which, Rob, I did not know you were a son of a deacon. Now I know. So we're going to have to talk about your upbringing. Rob grew up learning the importance of service, sacrifice, and leadership. Welcome my next guest on the Resilient Virtual Tour, Rob Hill Sr. Welcome, Rob. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you? Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yes, no, thank you for joining me. So I was telling Rob earlier, he has written so many wonderful books, and not just books, but also you have music. I've listened to your stuff on SoundCloud, and all of it is just so fantastic. And it's truly your entire career is being just built and you stay so true to yourself is something that I definitely just admire about you. And so I have a few questions that I want to ask you, but for the most part, as I tell everyone, casual conversation, speak whatever comes up, comes out, and we're going to just go with the flow. If something happens, continue to go with the flow. We're going to keep it very just relaxed. Most of our listeners and watchers are entrepreneurs, founders, people who might have idea or brand trying to get something off the ground. And so they're just here to listen to us and listen to you just talk about your story. So let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So I would love to know a little about your background. Being a son of a deacon, growing up in Virginia. Tell me a little bit about your background. So take me all the way back around, how did you grow up?
Oh, awesome. So I started out in Chesapeake, Virginia, where I was born. My family, so my grandparents kind of migrated from Kansas and they were in the Navy. My grandfather was a chief in the Navy. So Virginia is the headquarters for the Naval Fleet. So they settled down here. My mother grew up here and I spent probably about the first 10 years of my life here in Chesapeake, Virginia. And I think we moved to Virginia Beach probably about the second grade. Okay. My mom got married in 1995, and that's where my dad came into my life as far as the military officer and the travel, right? I like to talk about it because it's exciting, but I went to 11 schools before the 12th grade.
True military kid.
Yes, true. And it is a unique experience, but that's everywhere from Virginia, North Carolina, New Jersey, Germany, California. And I finished in Virginia. My parents, I think they became deacons after my senior year. So it was during my collegiate years. But I really saw the study and schooling that went into that, the mentorship, like the actual process. And I really, really appreciated that word that they would say often, which was covenant. That stood out a lot to me. But overall, that's kind of my background. I was always in a different school, always taught by a whole bunch of different teachers, always introducing myself as the new kid, always kind of having my little journal and being influenced to write by my mom, who is also an author and a publisher. And, just being exposed. I talked about it earlier to a friend. I was in London watching Les Mis, a 13-year-old on a band trip.
That's amazing.
And just, we took a family trip to Spain and saw Portugal, and I ate duck and saw a new beach for the first time, well before I should have seen one. And It was just experience, it was a life full of tangible experiences.
So today we know Rob Hill as a brand. What was your intention? So you went into the military. Would love to know about that experience in the military. And as you came out of the military, did you have something in mind? Was it what you're doing today, or was it something else? Or were you like, you know what, I'm going to get out and I'm going to see what happens?
Oh, I love that question because this is exactly what I plan to do. I got out of the military with the specific intention. I told my mom, I said, I have a son, he was 4 at the time, and I knew, you have to provide, and I was consistent, but I said, give me 2 years, I want to become an author and a speaker, and give me 2 years to make this a real thing. in that 2 years, I thought I was going to get back in college, right? So a little bit of how I ended up in the military. I found out I would become a father at 19. I was at Norfolk State University, attempting a sophomore year,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a complete life change, right? I'd always said I was never going in the military because I was a military kid and I did the travel.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have to provide for somebody, it's like I felt like college was a privilege. Like that was some stuff that I would be lucky to continue doing, right? But really, it was time to get a real life, right? So in that, all my friends went on to graduate. I saw people excelling in college, and I really, just decided I could learn another way. So I took some classes while I was deployed. I, read a lot of books while I was deployed, but really, I honed my craft as a writer. I wanted to be known as a writer, bigger than speaker, any other title that someone can know. I love that people know me as a writer. I think that that is one of the most successful things that I have accomplished in this brand building journey because it's been, extremely organic. It's been real, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
been just me taking it step by step and then not boxing myself in, right? I was telling my son, don't be the last person to take yourself serious. I am not going to wait for everybody else.
Yeah.
I take my idea serious.
Yeah. So I actually come from a military family background as
Nice.
well. And so in my family, it was either you go into the military or you go to college. You had to pick one. And so I went to college, but both of my brothers went in the military. My brother that's closest to me in age is stationed in Las Vegas. And so I understand that dynamic very well. So I just wanted to just say that in general,
Yes.
I think that do you feel like the military prepared you for your next journey, or essentially your entire life up to that point, up till you got out of the military, was preparing you for what you're doing?
Yes, I have to honor the phrase military bearing. That is big in my life. My grandfather, he learned some things in the military that undoubtedly, approached the way, touched the way he approached fatherhood and, being that patriarch of our family. And then, my dad's unique experience as an officer, as a West Point cadet, and just truly excelling within the service, you know, he taught me some to be, a well-rounded individual, to be a stickler for detail. These are things that he was saying that I found annoying, when I was in high school, but
Mm-hmm.
they are so valuable now. And my own military experience, I would like to say my most fruitful lesson in the Navy was that I could be good even at tasks that I don't enjoy, even at things that I hate, right? I don't enjoy this, but I am going to get it done because I have a personal standard. I have, um, just I expect myself to be able, right, and to do well. And because that's not dependent on somebody telling me or somebody watching me or somebody applauding me, I think that that has served me well as a writer,
Mm-hmm.
because it's made me resilient, much like your book states, but diligent. I
Yes.
am diligent.
Yes. And a word that always comes to me when I think about my siblings who've gone into the military and our background is disciplined, right? Just having like that focus and discipline to do the things, as what you just said, that you may not even like doing, but doing it anyway, because you might have to do this to be able to get to the next thing that's coming down the line for you.
Yeah.
I was
Discipline is the
talking,
key.
it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah.
And, and I was
And
talking to another speaker about what it takes to be successful, right? And I feel like those are some of the characteristics that really speak to entrepreneurs who often have success versus those who may be challenged with that. But what were you going to say?
well, I was going to say, um, excuse the angelic chimes,
I like
but
it. It adds some energy.
it does. It adds some ambiance. So, but I was going to say that I really think, you know, what, the chimes made me lose it. But discipline is not a punishment, right? So many people think of it as like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this to be disciplined. And I think discipline is like a vitamin, and it is so fruitful to our lives. And if we look at it as an opportunity to be poised, to be composed, to be diligent, and to endure, right, at a standard, I think we see everything change, and it sends a message to everyone in our life, everyone in our circle, right? I see a lot of people saying, "Because you did, I thought to do," and that's an awesome compliment, you know.
100%. So how do you become so passionate about wanting to help other people? And you do it, it's like intentional, but almost just what's ingrained in you that comes out naturally. I'm like, man, how can I don't even know. I'm a okay writer, but you are just so skilled at communicating in so few words, which sometimes takes people pages and pages, right? Long emails to try to communicate.
Yes. I've been deposited in a lot, a lot. People have always taken time to have conversations with me. At every stop, in any part of my life, I can think back to a person who may feel like a stranger at this point because we haven't talked within the last years, but it was just a conversation. They just opened up to me. I didn't know why they were sharing this information, but it was like, oh, okay. And then I have this unique ability to let myself open up. Yeah. I can be present. I could just let myself be open and then just trust whatever's coming to the top. And it has always served me well. It has always served me well. So I think, you know, as a writer and as a communicator, as a messenger, my intention is simple. I want to be helpful. It sounds as redundant as a stop sign may feel, but when you really think about the usefulness of a stop sign, it's like stop, reflect, look around, you know, pause, reconsider your direction, right? Reconsider your route. How are you approaching this route? What posture are you in? So I like my words to touch people in those ways. Mm-hmm. Very practical, but I wanted to kind of carry through your day. One of the greatest compliments I get is that was right on time. And it's like, we're all on a different universal clock, right? But it's like to be able to deposit something while somebody is in stride, much like track, like you're handing the baton at the right time. Mm-hmm. Is that's my good service, right? That's what I like to do.
When I think about how social media has changed today, and one thing about you, Rob, I've been following you for so long on social media. You were kind of one of the OGs in your space of like helping and like giving advice and just generally trying to get across to people saying that, you know, you're going to have, if you're having a bad day today, you're going to have better days tomorrow, right? Just push through, just do the things that you're passionate about. You were doing this long before people figured out how to monetize their social media. Long before, even before Instagram has sold to Facebook. How has the changes over, you know, with social media over the years impacted you? And how did you grow your brand so large on social media? Was it just, I know a part of it was just doing what you're doing, right? Doing what you're passionate about, writing and saying things that you were just passionate about.
There's a popular quote. Well, I don't know how popular, but it's a favorite of mine. It says, enthusiasm is common, but endurance is rare. I wanted to be on that rare end. So I built my first blog in 2006. Mm-hmm. I was using MySpace notes to share poems back in 2005, 2004. And so I've always dabbled with a little social media and just letting people know, like, hey, I wrote a thing. It may come like once every 6 months back then, or once every 3 months. When I deployed, I no longer had the same internet access to my blog spot, right? But also, you just don't have the same access, period. So I wanted to do an email list, an email newsletter. So this was going to serve two purposes. One, I was going to be able to send some inspiration and some love and remind people like, hey, I'm away, right? Think about me. And then two, I was going to become a real writer. I was going to shed that word aspiring. And how would I do that? I would be consistent. I would do it daily. I would have something out by 9 a.m., right? And lo and behold, people who, you know, once maybe saw something from me every once in a while started really looking forward to my stuff. They started passing it around to coworkers, and, you know, it was growing. So like 22 contacts grew to about 3,000. In 2011, I released my first book, About Something Real. And this was a gift from family. This was the benefit of my mom and my dad Fallen in Love, right? They did an independent book release back in 1996, self-published, and we did the Black Expo, and I was like 12, 11 in Los Angeles Convention Center, learning how to sell a bookmark so that people would be interested in buying my mom's book, right? So just remembering a monologue so I can go stop a person and say it and try to, my mom's like, you cute, they're not going to ignore you.
Strategy.
Exactly, just using what we could, right? So I tried to sell a book to Yolanda Adam one time. I tried to sell a book to Keenan from All That outside of West Angeles Church in Los Angeles. It was just experiences, right? So fast forward to the advent of social media, I naturally was good at introducing myself to community, right? That came from being in the classroom, right? But now I have this new space to amplify what I've already been doing in these newsletters. And now I get to use these mirrors. People who are already forwarding it to their coworkers, now they get to reshare and copy and paste. So, let me continue, right? Let me continue. But my thing is, I always got in this to be an author. I always got in this to be someone who produces books. So I didn't want to get lost in just the quotes and everything. But for me, the quotes and the social media, they are the most powerful way to remind readers that authors are always writing. We're always looking to create something that may deposit, not just one story that may be in that book form, not just, one show that we may get a chance to write on, not just one song that we may get a chance to contribute to, but all the time, So I like social media because it's expanding followings for songwriters, producers, all types of creators who were normally, because, when I got in this, I didn't expect to be seen.
Yeah.
I did not. I expected to be heard, and I expected my words to be felt, but I did not expect for people to say, "Oh, you're a brand." Just 30 years ago, people weren't looking at authors specifically, Black young male authors.
You're right.
As a brand, right? Maybe had one or two, Eric Jerome Dickey,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like all of us, and that was a certain genre,
Yeah, it's so true. I think about just like the rise of social media and how things have changed. A mixtape, the name of one of your mixtape is called The Audacity of a Good Heart. And when I was listening to that and the name made me think about even my social media journey as my following has climbed, how sometimes you get a couple people that don't like what you're saying, right? And so how do you deal with that? Because I love the name of that mixtape, Audacity of a Good Heart, because it's kind of like, the audacity of you to want to speak positivity over people's life. Like, what?
Right.
How do you deal with that type of negativity?
Well, I faced it a lot. When you talk about me kind of being at the forefront of more of this wellness space on social media, it was a lot of people who suggested, like, who are you to think you're good? Who are you to consider yourself healthy? Who are you to consider yourself wise, right? And it was like, wow, what do we really think of one another? We all been in school. We all been learning. We don't deem ourselves, teachers at one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
So dealing with the negativity, I've always just tried to add some type of perspective. Sometimes I'm like, all right, and then other times I'm like, check yourself, Rob. Is there something to consider? Because as a messenger, my task is to get the message through so that it's received. If it gets bounced back, then that is another task to become more skilled. Maybe I substitute a word. Maybe I change the approach, right? And as I've seen over the years, consistency trumps, anything, right? I've gotten better at doing what I set out to do each year, right? So the enjoyment of that really trumps the negativity of people who disagree, because most often than not, they're only going to give me something to consider. I'm a student. They might not think that. They might think like, oh, he thinks he's an expert. He thinks he's saying everything right. And I realize that I'm in the biggest classroom on the internet right now, and people have decided to talk back to me when I raise my hand. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to take this, and imagine how I'm writing when I'm 50. I'm 33 now, you all. Imagine, I got to see it first.
Oh, yeah. I can't. Well, I'm happy to just be able to be along for the journey, and to be able to see someone continue to evolve is really powerful. And I don't think people extend the type of grace that they want to receive, right? along the way. And so, yeah, everything you said is like just powerful in itself, but also we think about the larger perspective of we're going to continue to get better, right? As long as we are welcoming that type of education and welcoming just the space of like learning. Now, I'm sure people who love what you're saying and feel tied, connected to it, reach out to you, and you're helping all these different people. I'm sure you hear like a lot of across the gambit, a whole bunch of different things. What are some like these reoccurring things that people reach out to you and say, Rob, this is something that I'm dealing with and something I need help with? And what type of words or encouragement would you say to people who are just feeling like they are in a place where they can't move forward, whether that's in their relationship, whether that's just in their careers, their jobs? How do people generally stay in that positive mindset and that mind frame, which you have tried to continue to do? Because you could back out loud and say, oh, I don't know, something's going wrong in my life, and so this is what y'all gonna get today. But that consistency is something that you have definitely taught. But what we recommend to other people who may not see that as an option for them?
Well, I allow myself to have the days, I allow myself to have the moments. But I do think that a part of, leadership or even being heard is understanding composure. You don't show everything you feel. You keep the larger picture at bay. And yes, I could get out there and just be overly emotive and express everything because I think people might grab it. But, I think that diminishes my heart intention, right? And I don't want to write because this thing adds value. So for people who don't easily generate that type of energy, I always suggest journaling, but being specific, not just writing, uh, oh, so and so did this to me and I said this. No, just write some affirmations, right? Just try to write 3 positive sentences a day. Make them simple. They can be less than 10 words, they can be less than 15 words, but write them in the morning and then try to recite them to the mirror before lunch. Just try. Look at yourself, say it. Hear yourself, say it. To me, I think that when we talk about our feelings and not being necessarily a prisoner to them, right? We have to first decide how we want to feel. And we have to affirm all of the things that get us close to that sentiment. And if you want to feel creative and you want to feel invested in and supported, you cannot make statements like, nobody sees me. People don't value when I try that. They only like it when so-and-so does it. It's not true. It's not something that even feels good for your spirit to hear your body say. So to me, the question sounds like, how do we reprogram sometimes when, we are faced with life, right? But my thing is, sometimes it's my best tool is to pause and reflect. My best tool is to literally pause and reflect. And then from there, I decide I don't have to have all the answers. And everything I need doesn't have to come from me. And now, how can I see the picture after considering those 2 things, right? One's either going to make me be a student and do more research or go seek some wisdom from a mentor or ask some questions. And then the other, it's going to make me have to release and move forward because it's time for that. So, and then, this quote's in my bio, but I just like to deposit it because it's the one that keeps me in a certain posture. But we're all one choice away from a completely different life. One of the simplest quotes, but I learned it in jail in 2006, right? When I was just realizing, I was trying to replay it like, wait, everybody called me smart. Everybody said, but how did I end up on my back in this bed on this bottom bunk like this? And I knew it was my choices, right? And I had made one too many with careless intentions. I had made one too many without considering the full value of my life and its direction. I have made one too many without deciding like, oh, each one of these incrementally has impact on how I'm feeling, what my options are, who's loving me, all of this stuff. So that's one kind of big summation of how I get through. Right. Right.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, I thought you were going to say, oh, talk about manifesting, but I love that you talked about affirmations and you talked about looking at the choices you make. Oftentimes, we don't even think about the things that we reinforce in our own head, and to take the time to be intentional about reinforcing positive things upon
So
yourself and in your mind. We don't even think about that.
we want to manifest, right? And we want to bring things into fruition, but I don't think we realize, like, your spirit, your whole being has to believe that. Everything in you has to trust that. Everything in you has to believe it. If not, what you're manifesting is going to feel like fluff. It's going to feel like loose ends, right? And disappointment. I think that once we start commanding our thoughts, we become, my favorite thing is, creators of fact, not creatures of circumstance, right?
Yes,
And to
yes.
me, you can have all the fun you want manifesting once you've affirmed the right things, because your posture is centered and rooted, in something real.
Yes, yes. So I was going to ask, what was one of the biggest challenges you had to overcome? You kind of touched on it and how you had to shift the choices that you were making.
Yeah,
When you
yeah.
think about
Maybe
like overcoming those challenges, like what does that look like?
knocking down imposter syndrome, right? Knowing that you're going to face it, right? Sometimes we question because we have doubt, but I think that comes with the consideration that, hey, maybe I'm in some new air. Maybe I'm experiencing some things that were a little bit outside of my bounds. Um, I think, maybe deeper than that. Damn it, I lost it. Excuse my candidness. I
Take
don't
your
know if you can
time.
say that. I don't know if you
Oh
can say
no,
that here.
yeah, you should have. Yeah, people been cussing left and
I was
right,
about to say,
so
excuse my
you're fine.
candidness. I don't know the rules people have for authors, but this one says a word or two sometimes. Can you reinforce that question for me? Because I had something
So
that I wanted
thinking
to get to.
about the biggest challenges you faced and how
Mhm.
you've overcome them.
Oh, yeah. Everyone asks me how you heal your heart, right? And that's like the most popular question that I get. And I say by opening it. And they be like, and I have overcome everything that scared me by facing it. I have um, stayed true and endured and persisted when things, other people told me, it's like, that's dumb, it's not going to work. But it has turned out for me in a way that I envision, because um, I don't know, it's just something in me. It's just something in me. And I
Yeah.
think that same thing is in each person. Um, but I think overcoming those challenges really just, it's a decision. I've decided how I'm going to get through life.
Yeah. So when you think about, people that you meet, people that never meet you or haven't met you yet, what are some of the things that people seem to most misunderstand about you?
Oh, well, people think I cheated when I was in a past relationship, and I didn't. I don't like that.
So these are things
People
that
think,
bother you, right?
yeah, that kind of bothers me, because I think that makes people kind of second guess my authenticity, and I just like to be like, no, that's not true. I think that some people think that I approach this from a very like a high seat, right? And I see myself more of as like the foundation. I'm willing to kind of like lay on the ground floor without a seat and make sure everybody else is comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think some people misunderstand how true this is to just my real life journey. I saw my mom writing. She would make me go write. She would communicate with me a lot. Relationships in my family aren't perfect. Relationships in the neighborhoods that I grew up in aren't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important that I be a part of improving them. So I think, people misunderstand why someone like myself loves the work in this space, right? Why wellness is important, and why it's important for me to start talking about it as early as I did in my 20s. I wear, one of my friends' name on my arm, right? He passed at 19. This is not exciting to say. We have to value life, So I think people just and I don't know if I don't know what it is, but I just think people misunderstand why people show up where they do, right?
Yeah.
And this is just true to me. I grew up around authors. I grew up around people who were committed to articulating what they feel, articulating powerful stories, um, and 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 knowing the true power and gratitude that comes with that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because again, I thought I was making myself feel better when I started writing. I thought I was, explaining myself, right? But someone told me today, like, you're helping people. And it's like, wow, I don't know that person's name, but thank you for that message,
Yeah.
because I didn't know it could reach you. I didn't know it could
Mm-hmm.
reach you. I always tell people, like, I sold books in 50 countries and I haven't set my feet in all of those countries. And that's a beautiful opportunity.
Meaning you could reach people wherever they are, which is
Yeah,
powerful in itself.
that's a beautiful opportunity.
So this next question is kind of like a 3-part question. What was the most important thing you've learned in your life? What was your life like before learning it? And then what was your life like after learning it?
The most important thing I learned in my life, I would say that we're not islands, right? And I think that it was told to me by my parents to reiterate the fact that our decisions and our choices affect more than just us. Our life, impacts the people who love us, the people who care about us. And I think before that, I approached life with a ego and pride posture, right? And I think after learning, like really learning it, I realized like I fell. I faced some things that kind of humbled me, right? And I think that life after gaining the humility has been. I told my mom, it's like playing in the NBA for us. It's been awesome. It's been like a dream. It's been a once in a lifetime journey, right?
Yes.
Because I see how I'm not an island, and the things that I feel positively can affect a lot of people and impact them in ways and in their days and all types of things. So it was that, just learning like, hey, you're not alone out here. The things you do and say, they count, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. Every day counts, towards the
Yeah,
next day.
yeah.
So that's real. So gonna shift a little bit. I didn't, dug in all your personal business. So want to talk about the things that you're working on, what you're excited about. I was checking out the new podcast, which is called Head
Yes,
in the
yeah.
Game. That's really interesting. I know you're talking to successful men, but even before we go there, would love to just know what you're working on, what you're excited about.
I am um, building a publishing company, right? So for the last 10 years or so, I have been doing independent publishing. I did do, a book with a major publisher, but I have built this company and kind of grown and saw the process and seen everything change to a way that I feel serve other authors. I can serve other people. I can amplify them. And then probably the most fruitful part of that is we are going to have our own printing equipment. This is something that is like not happening amongst Black publishers, independent publishers. Everyone has to outsource their printing, right? So we are going to have something that kind of starts from idea all the way to in our hand.
I love that.
And we're going to be able to amplify voices that, I believe are traditionally overlooked, right? If the running joke, most of our life was that um, if you want to hide something from Black people, put it in a book, right? The
Mm-hmm.
publishing industry has kind of weaponized that against Black voices, saying we don't have a market, we don't have readers, right? But look at us. Look at all of us writing books, creating content, spreading messages far and wide. So I think it's a great time to get in the industry and be able to provide authors some equity, right? More than that 7.5% that the traditional publishers try to kick out, right?
Right.
So that's exciting.
That's I'm excited about that because
It's
what
full circle.
when we started this conversation, this is behind the scenes. I was like, I should have called you,
Yeah,
Robert,
yeah.
and let you guided me through this book process because
Yes.
it kicked my butt. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie to you, it really did. And
Well,
It really did.
I was about to say, well, the next one we got a team that can support you. We have a good team, a strong team.
Yes, and I said to myself, I was like, I don't know when I'm writing the book, but I can tell you, I'm going to go about it differently, because it is a brutal process, just trying to take all of these thoughts, all these ideas, and put it into this the condensed version of a book where you're communicating in a way that people will receive it. So noted.
You did it.
So let's talk about the podcast.
Okay, head in the game.
So how has that been going? And has COVID impacted, some of the things that you've been doing? I've loved the interview so far, so would love to know how that's going. And I have a few questions about that because I was listening. I was like, okay, I'm going to ask him this question and flip the question on you.
I like it. So head in the game, it is me and the show's creator, Rodney. He's a friend of mine. And this is our first chance getting a chance to sell a show and getting a chance to license it to a company and own the IP and then negotiate, do all of that, right? So that was exciting. But the actual show has been one of probably the best things I've done in the last few years to me, because it's a chance for I've been interviewed, right? But it's a chance for me to prepare, do research, really learn. And we've had some awesome conversations with some men I admire. My favorite one, and it's coming, it's not released, but it's with Anthony Hamilton. And this is somebody I was listening to his music, growing up. And the way, we were able to exchange and kind of converse, it was just edifying. And towards the end, he was like, hey, you got to keep doing this. This is one of my favorite interviews. I'm like, thank you, Anthony. You got a lot of my favorite songs. But the whole substance of the convo is to bring out those tools, those mindsets, and those approaches that people take, and specifically people that we've seen be successful, right? And have some example that may be public. How'd you do that, right? You won an NBA championship, but how did you develop that championship mindset before you won the ring, when you were at college, when you were transferring, when things weren't going right? I saw that you got this milestone. You maybe were acting in this profession, or you got this Grammy nomination, but what were those 10 years, Anthony, where you were unsigned? Well, excuse me, where you were signed from 93 to 2003 and the record didn't happen? How did you keep your enthusiasm? How did you develop your enthusiasm? How did you not change your idea for yourself, right? How did you not stop believing? So this show is a chance for me to ask men these questions in this first season, because we're definitely going to expand it to women. But in this, it's just a chance to have those conversations, because I think a lot of people will come to me for wisdom, but they don't realize, like, your favorite athlete has some genius in them too. Your favorite actor has some genius in them too. Your favorite executive has some genius in them too. And my goal is to just extract that in those conversations.
Yeah. So based on some of your interviews to date, when you think about interviewing these men who have been successful, what has been some common themes that you found that a lot of successful men, you hear them say often, or behaviors that they repeat often? You're like, okay, this is definitely something I'm going to put in the bucket of successful people or successful men.
It's going to sound weird, right? But selective hearing. You can't internalize all criticism. You can't internalize even all feedback, right? You have to listen to yourself and your intuition, that inner voice. And you have to be in tune with that. A lot of these men talk about being grounded. They talk about having a firm, either spirituality, faith, religious practice, right? But bigger than that, everyone is a reader.
Yeah.
Everyone is a reader. It is very hard, I feel like, to find success without consuming new information and updating what it is you think you believe, what it is you feel is true, and all of those things. But yeah, those things are biggest common. And they all agree that relationships enhance their lives. They all agree that love enhances their life. So
you talk about mental toughness as well on this podcast. Do you feel like those are some of the ways that people have built up some mental toughness along the way? And if so, and if not, what advice would you give to people to build more mental toughness so criticism, all these things don't have such a weighted impact on them?
Well, I think, these individuals, they start with a good sense of who they are. They start with a good sense of self-awareness. And I think before you go out here trying to tackle the world and accomplish everything, you need to know who you are. You need to agree with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to feel at harmony. If not, everybody's going to trick you out of your good ideas. They're going to, you're just going to not, you're going to feel like a ping pong. So I think developing that mental toughness is from their own unique experience, but it really is from their awareness that, hey, I have a choice in this. I get to decide how I feel, what I listen to, from the music to the conversations. I get to decide what movies I'm watching. I get to decide what circles I'm in. I get to decide where I'm studying, where I'm learning, where I'm applying, right? I get to decide. And when you take ownership of your life right there, I think it builds a certain toughness that, is just it's vital. It's vital to any self-accomplishment journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. People don't, it takes so much, right? It's you have to keep working on yourself.
You have to. And listen, you can't, because if you don't work on yourself, you're going to make it about the results. And the results are going to sometimes trick you out of your value. And you cannot do that. You need to be in tune with yourself. You need to work on yourself, because it's not just about one thing. It's about the greater picture, right? And if you see the whole of you, you won't be so lost in the tunnel of, individual problems. That's what I say.
Yeah. So you have someone out here and they're looking at you and they're trying to figure out how you did it, right? They're like, I want to take this type of career path. What will you tell those individuals? Most authors say, oh, just start writing. What would you tell people?
Okay. It's probably multiple things, but I would say that for every one book you want to write, you probably should read like 100, and that's a small number, but that's a good start for people to understand what it takes to learn sentence structure, book composition, your own voice as a writer and as a messenger, and then also fall in love with being willing to be ignored, right? Meaning you can't become a writer unless you let people read it. What's a writer without readers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to share it. You have to get feedback, and not from feedback who say stuff like, oh, that was good, or I always like what you write, right?
Right.
Feedback from people who are saying, hey, this sentence made me feel such and such. Can you expound on your intention behind it? Or, hey, I thought about this when you read this. Somebody who can help you develop more branches from your own root thoughts, right? So I think that's probably the biggest advantage for me, is that I would put it out there, and I think the best gift is that people want to have conversations about it. When you write something, people might want to talk about it. And to me, that has made me a better writer year after year after year after year. So if you want to, enjoy book writing as I have, because some people see it as stress, and it's a lot of people who see it as stress, right? But if you want to enjoy it, you have to get a relationship with your readers that is edifying, a relationship with your readers that is fruitful. Because sometimes, I have to get over myself, because I feel like there are people who count on what I can contribute. Not to say that that's pressure, right? But that's an awesome opportunity that I want to step up for. So if you want to write, you need to become a profound and diligent reader.
Yeah. No. I agree with you. I'm thinking about even some of my favorite like lyricists, right? It's just no way that they hadn't picked up books or read. Like you don't learn how to rap like that, to communicate like that, unless you've read something. You read some books, right? And I always think about that. You know, I used to be in junior high reading poems by Tupac, and so I was just so engulfed in it. And I think about, man, how they were exposed, the books that they read. You can read books and pick them up and literally walk into a whole new universe that you never knew existed through a book.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Nip talks about the spook who sat by the door is the infiltration. That's a powerful book by Sam Green Lee about a black guy who was a CEA, and he was kind of manipulated in that process, but he used it to ultimately help street gangs in Chicago stop violence, right, and develop order and disciplines. And Nip was talking about that from the aspect of him learning the music business and being able to apply repeatable methods and models, be it merge, you know, creative releases, all of that to artists, right? And, you know, to me, I get off on so many tangents, but
no, I love it. Keep going.
That's the bigger thing. That's the bigger thing for me.
You know, you said repeatable models, and it's interesting because I'm in this aspect in tech, and one of the things that we talk about is repeatable, predictable. If you can create that element in your work, in your business, how much more success you'll have. And so I love the fact that you touched on that, even in relationship to something outside of tech.
It's important.
Repeatable, predictable, right?
Ever since I learned the word fluke, you know, I was young. I learned the word fluke. And I said, oh, if I do something one time, you get a chance to call it that. I don't like that. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to do it over and over and over again. And I'm going to help that person do it. And then you know, that's the type of way I want to live.
Absolutely. So, Rob, you know, I've grilled you enough, and which I don't feel like it was grilling because
I wasn't.
You do this. So hopefully it was a good conversation. But I just want to thank you again for being a part of the Resilient Virtual Book Tour. You're definitely such a inspiration, not only for me, but so many others. And I know that even more people are going to continue to not only follow you, but grow with you. And I think that is what is so impactful about what you're doing and the work that you're sharing with the world. Any final words you have for those who will be watching and listening in here?
Thank you for having me. Go get this book. This book.
Yes, pick up Resilient.
Support Black authors.
Yes.
Support us in this space. That's all.
That part. Because we do write and we do read, okay?
Exactly.
No,
and we will grow.
And we will grow.
That you're going to get a return on that investment.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for being here with me.
No, thank you for having me.